I've kept this to myself for years, but I've never been able to shake what happened to me that night. I'm finally ready to tell someone. Maybe it'll help me get some peace, though I doubt it will make any sense to you. All I know is I'll never drive that highway again. It was a few years ago, right after a friend's birthday party in a small town outside Dallas. I left around 11 p.m., thinking I'd be home by 1 a.m., but it didn't work out that way. I had a long stretch of highway ahead of me, the kind of road that feels endless, wide, dark, and completely empty. The kind where you get lost in your own thoughts, or worse, your own fears. At first it wasn't bad. The road was quiet, the sky clear. But then I noticed something in my rearview mirror. It was just a pair of headlights at first, far off. Then they got closer. Too close. At first I thought it was just someone trying to pass, so I sped up a little. But instead of zooming past, the car stayed right behind me, matching my speed. I figured it was a coincidence. Maybe it was just another driver. But the closer they got, the more my gut started to twist. I could feel their presence, like an invisible pressure building around me. Every time I looked in my mirror, those headlights were right there, too close. No matter how fast I went, they stayed right behind me. I tried to ignore it, telling myself I was being paranoid, but then my heart started pounding in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever was behind me wasn't just in a hurry. They were following me. I decided to make a move. There was a gas station a couple miles up the road, and I figured I could stop there, get out, stretch my legs, and maybe let this car pass. I pulled in, and immediately I saw the car follow me in. It parked right behind mine, close enough that I couldn't open my door without it hitting the other car. I could hear the engine still running. No one got out. No headlights turned off. Just the engine hum in the quiet of the night. I stayed in my car trying to calm my nerves. My hands were shaking, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I glanced at the gas station door. It was locked. It was nearly midnight, and the station was closed, except for the security lights flickering above. I was trapped. After a few moments, I forced myself out of the car, making sure not to look back. My mind kept screaming at me to run, but I didn't. I walked quickly toward the station, trying to act casual, but I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me. I didn't dare turn around, but I could feel them, like someone was watching me from the darkness. The footsteps behind me were too quiet to hear, but I swear, I could feel them. The attendant inside the station gave me a strange look as I walked in, but I didn't stop to explain. I just grabbed a drink and paid for it, trying to keep calm. When I stepped back outside, I saw that the car was still there. It hadn't moved, and yet it felt different. I quickly got into my car, telling myself everything was fine, but something wasn't right. Something was terribly wrong. My mind kept racing as I started the engine and pulled back onto the highway, trying to shake the feeling that I was being followed. But then, it happened again. Not even 5 minutes later, I saw the headlights again, way off in the distance at first, but slowly they began to get closer. I didn't speed up this time. I didn't need to. I just kept my foot steady on the gas. The car behind me mirrored my every move, closing the distance between us. Now I was sure, whoever it was, they were following me. I sped up. The car behind me did the same. I slowed down. So did they. I swerved a little to the right, trying to throw them off, but they did the same. It was like they knew everything I was going to do before I did it. I was shaking, heart racing, the fear building, knowing something bad was about to happen. A few miles down the road, I saw an exit sign. I pulled off, hoping I could lose them in the curves of the ramp. But as I took the turn, I saw them in my mirror. The same car, still following, still close. That's when I lost it. I pulled off into a smaller, desolate road, trying to find somewhere to stop, anywhere to get away. I needed help, but there was no one around. Just empty fields, trees, and darkness. I parked quickly, grabbed my bag, and got out. My hands were trembling so much I couldn't even get the door locked properly. My mind was racing. Should I call the police? Should I just drive to the nearest town? But I couldn't think straight. I just needed to get away from that car. I looked around for a place to run to, but there was nothing. No houses, no lights, just the highway and the blackness that surrounded it. And that's when I heard it, the sound of tires on gravel. The car was moving again. I turned around. There it was, sitting in the darkness, just far enough away that I couldn't make out the details of the car, but close enough that I could feel its presence. I felt sick to my stomach, the fear crawling under my skin, and then out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. I don't know how I didn't scream, but my mind went into overdrive. I had to get out of there. I I threw my bag in the back seat and started the car, barely able to breathe. And as I pulled back onto the highway, I saw the headlights again, just behind me. But this time, they were too close. I could see the shadow of the car in my rear view, and it was right on my tail. I floored it. The car behind me followed suit, matching my speed, my every move. But this time I didn't slow down. I didn't give them a chance. I just kept going faster and faster until the lights started to blur in my rear view. I didn't stop until I reached the nearest town, pulling into a well-lit area where I knew people would be. I haven't been back on that highway since. I don't know who or what was following me that night, but I know one thing. I felt something terrible was about to happen. Something I might not have walked away from if I hadn't trusted that gut feeling to get out of there. I still don't know what it was, but every time I drive at night, I can still see those headlights in my mirror following me. It was late, way too late for anyone to be on the road, but I still had hours to go before I could get home. I had been driving for what felt like forever. The clock on my dashboard said it was well past midnight. I was alone, just me and the road, speeding through the desert hills of northern Arizona. The headlights from my car cut through the thick darkness ahead of me, but beyond that, everything was pitch black. The road stretched out, winding and narrow like it had no end. There was no streetlight, no sign of life. The air outside was cool, but inside the car, it was warm, and I could feel my eyes starting to get heavy. The only sound I could hear was the steady hum of the engine and the soft rush of wind outside. It was the kind of night where everything felt still, where the only movement was the occasional shift of the trees swaying in the wind. I had passed through a few small towns hours ago, but now I was miles away from anything. The road was so empty, I started to feel like I was the only person left awake in the whole world. On either side of me were miles of dark desert, scattered with dry bushes and tall grass. The occasional rock or tree looked like dark shadows against the sky. No cars, no buildings, just the endless stretch of highway. The stars above were bright and clear, but even they felt far away. It was peaceful in a strange way, but it also felt lonely, like the whole world had shut down for the night, and I was the only one still driving through it. There was something eerie about the silence. I could almost hear my heartbeat in the quiet. As I drove around a sharp curve, I saw something ahead. I thought it was just my tired eyes, maybe a shadow or some shape in the distance, but as I got closer, I could see it more clearly. It was a person, a woman, standing by the side of the road. Her thumb was out like she was hitchhiking. I wasn't going to stop. I'd heard the stories about picking up strangers on long, lonely highways, especially at night. It wasn't safe. I had no reason to stop, but something made me hesitate. The woman wasn't waving her arms or jumping around like most hitchhikers. She wasn't trying to get my attention. She was just standing there, her head lowered, looking down at the ground. The road was empty. I was alone. And there was something about the way she was standing there that made me feel uneasy. I could see she was wearing a long, worn-out coat. It looked old and torn, the kind of coat that someone would wear if they had been out in the cold for a long time. Her hair was messy, tangled around her face like she hadn't bothered to comb it in days. Her clothes were dirty, and she looked like she hadn't been well cared for. As I got closer, I thought maybe I should stop. Maybe she needed help. But I quickly pushed that thought away. I couldn't stop for her. It wasn't safe, not on a road like this in the middle of nowhere. I kept driving, but something made me glance in my rearview mirror. Just a quick glance, like I was making sure I wasn't missing something. At first, everything looked fine. The road behind me was empty, nothing in sight. But then, my heart skipped a beat. She was gone. I swear she was just there a second ago, standing by the side of the road. But now, there was nothing. The road was empty again. I slowed down and pulled over to the side of the road. I was sure she had moved into the bushes or something, maybe even left already, but I didn't see her. Not a trace of her anywhere. There were no footsteps in the dirt, no sign of where she had gone. I opened my window slightly, trying to listen. I didn't know why, but I felt like I should stay and see if she was somewhere nearby. Maybe I could help her, I thought. Maybe I missed something. But all I heard was the soft rustling of the wind in the trees. Nothing else. Not a sound. I sat there for a while, staring at the empty road. I tried to calm myself, but my mind kept racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I had imagined it, but something told me I wasn't. That's when I heard it. A tap, tap, tap. At first, it was so soft, I thought it was just the wind or something. But then it came again, a little louder this time. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from my window, the passenger side, the window closest to the road. I froze. My heart was racing. I didn't dare look. I just sat there, frozen, with my hands gripping the steering wheel. I kept staring ahead, trying to act like I didn't hear it. But the tapping kept coming, soft but steady. I wanted to turn and look. I had to know what it was, but I was too scared. What if it was her? What if she had somehow appeared next to the car? How could she have gotten there so fast? The tapping kept coming. I turned my head to glance in the rearview mirror. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I told myself it would be fine. Maybe I was just imagining things. But when I looked, my heart stopped. There she was, the woman. She was standing right next to the car, staring at me through the window. Her face was pale, almost sickly white, and her hair hung in front of her face, but I could still see her eyes. They were wide open, unblinking, and locked onto mine. Her coat was dirty, just like before, but now it seemed even more ragged. She wasn't moving, just standing there, her eyes fixed on me, as if waiting for something. I couldn't breathe. My body went cold, and I felt like I was frozen in place. How did she get there? How had she moved so fast? The road had been empty, I was sure of it. There was no way she could have gotten so close without me noticing. I couldn't think. I couldn't move. All I knew was that I needed to get away from her. Fast. Without thinking, I slammed my foot down on the gas pedal and sped off. The engine roared, and I raced down the road as fast as I could, my eyes locked on the dark highway ahead. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I was too scared. It wasn't until I reached my house, safely parked in my driveway, that I finally stopped. My hands were still shaking, and my breath was ragged from the adrenaline. But even as I sat there, I couldn't forget the look in her eyes, the way she had stared at me, motionless in the darkness, the way she had been there, just outside the car, when I had thought I was alone. To this day, I don't know what happened. Was it just a trick of my tired mind? Maybe, but every time I drive alone at night, I still think about that woman. And I never pick up hitchhikers, not even in the daytime.